everyone. I hope you're all doing well and growing during this series through the book of Daniel. It's hard to believe this is already our 5th week. As always, during our time together, we will talk for a few minutes about Daniel chapter 5, and then end with some questions designed to guide the discussion time in your cell groups. This will enable us to learn and grow together in a community of believers with one mind and one goal, to know Jesus and to be more like him. So let's get to it. Chapter 5. So in Daniel 5, we find a sobering event where King Nebuchadnezzar's grandson Belshazzar assumed the throne of Babylon. Historians say this was 23 years after King Nebuchadnezzar's death. King Belshazzar decided to throw an epic party, and over 1,000 were in attendance. As he was influenced by the effects of alcohol and was overcome with his pride and arrogance, he made a fatal error. He tells the servants to break out all the gold and silver vessels that were taken from the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Now, these holy vessels were prescribed by God to be used solely for holy rituals in the temple. Not only did they drink wine from these holy vessels, they also praised their pagan gods in the process. But God made note of this heinous act of rebellion and arrogance. He has a hand appear out of nowhere, and it writes 4 words on the wall as the king and his party witnessed it. Needless to say, the king's knees buckled in fear, and he cried out for his astrologers, soothsayers, and magicians to come and interpret what the words meant. None of them could decipher the meaning of the words, and the king became very distraught. But the queen remembered the stories of the Hebrew man by the name of Daniel. He was the guy that interpreted dreams for King Nebuchadnezzar so accurately. So Belshazzar summoned Daniel to come and bring meaning to the writing on the wall. Daniel humbly explained that the God of Israel was the one that gave all power and authority to his grandfather Nebuchadnezzar. But Nebuchadnezzar had one fatal flaw. It was pride. In Daniel 5:20, Daniel told Belshazzar, "But when his heart was lifted up, and his spirit was hardened so that he dealt proudly, he was brought down from his kingly throne, and his glory was taken from him." So Daniel told Belshazzar that he has followed his grandfather's spiritual heritage through succumbing to his pride and arrogance. He treated what was holy as unholy and reveled in his earthly kingdom. So God gave him a warning. The words on the wall meant that God had numbered the days of his earthly kingdom, and it is finished. That his life had been weighed on a balance and had been found wanting. And finally, his kingdom would be given over to the Medes and Persians. Needless to say, God's warning was fulfilled that very night. One can hear of this event in history and wonder why Belshazzar didn't humble himself before God. But the warning stands for all of us. Is there anything that God has deemed holy that we have made unholy? Ultimately, we are God's holy vessels that he wants us to be used for his service. 2 Timothy 2:20 and 21 says, "Now in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also wood and clay, some for honorable use, some for dishonorable. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set aside as holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work." So now, as we dive into the questions, keep the ideas of pride and humility, holiness and unholiness in your minds as we answer the following questions from Daniel chapter 5. A couple of these questions may challenge us to be transparent, but hopefully, trust is developing in your group to give you the guts to risk it. Let me encourage you, go for it. Okay, question 1. Have there been ways that you have made something that is holy to God unholy in your life? Or is there something that isn't necessarily holy to God that you are making too important or even holy to you? Take a moment now, pause the video, and discuss this in your group. Moving on to question 2. Did you experience God's discipline in your life in any way through your pride and arrogance? Remember now, take a risk and really be transparent and honest. Okay, pause the video here and discuss. All right, last one. What are some ways God has humbled you, and what benefits have you experienced through living a more humbled life? Pause the video here for discussion time, and when we come back, we'll wrap up today's lesson. Well, I hope you had a great discussion today in your cell group on a great story found in Daniel chapter 5. As always, our prayer is that God would be speaking to you during this time and in your cell group time. Know that our staff is praying for you and excited to see what God is doing through our church and your cell group. Make sure to read Daniel chapter 6 for next week, and don't forget, we have a daily Daniel reading plan on the back of the bulletin. You can also find it on our website. Looking forward to seeing you all Sunday as we celebrate what God is doing in our lives and in our community. God bless you. Have an awesome week.